Pick a move in the ring. You can hit me with the words you fling.
Hey guys, it's the post-fight podcast from the South China Morning Post. I'm Nick Atkin in Hong Kong. It is May 22, and as usual, I am joined by Mr. Jon Jones over in Korea. John, how's everything with you?
Everything's the same here, but I can't say the same about the UFC world or the MMA world right now because it seems like every day something has changed.
You are right. It's a lot of fights have been added, haven't they, to these cards that are coming up. I guess there's no better place to start than with the UFC Fight Night, Woodley versus Burns, which sounds like it's going to be coming out of the Apex in Las Vegas. Not being 100% confirmed, although Dana White said we are a go. We're just waiting, I guess, on the absolute official confirmation, aren't we?
Of course, but it seemed like it was reported already by a big outlet that it
It
is
was in Las
confirmed for
Vegas
the
Review
Apex.
Journal, yeah. But until it's on Google, I'm not buying it.
Okay, so so yeah, well, it seems like everything pointing to Las Vegas. So, um, it's great to see that Las Vegas is going to have the UFC there again. I feel like this is the spot. They need to have all the shows. You know, they have everything there. It works out for them perfectly, and so many fighters already in Las Vegas. So it's going to be easier for them to put these cards together. I think with the lineups. But yeah, if you look at the card for May 30th, they've added, I believe, 7 more fights. So I'm gonna try to run through those real quick. Chris Gutierrez, he's returning from I believe knee surgery, and he's
Yeah.
making a comeback against Vince Morales. Um, that's a decent fight. You know what I mean? Both those guys are guys that are building themselves up in the bantamweight division. I like to see that. That's interesting to watch. And I've been following Chris for a little bit now, and he has a unique story. So I would like to see what he can do with that, and when he does reach the higher ranks, how that story affects his journey in the UFC. Another fight, Caitlin Chukagian versus Antonina Shevchenko. This is a unique matchup, right, Nick?
Sure thing. We're on the main card here. This has been added recently, right?
The Chukagian fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if you look at Tapology, yeah,
Yeah.
they got Chukagian. She just recently fought for the flyweight title,
Yeah.
and now she's facing the sister of the champion.
Yeah.
But luckily for her, Antonina is also ranked. I believe she's in between 10 and 15, somewhere in there. It's a
Number
good
13.
fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 13. It's a good fight. They're gonna stand and trade. But this is more of a toss up than the Valentina fight. Valentina just dominates everybody, and she did it to Chukagian. But Antonina, she hasn't shown as much in the octagon as her sister, and this fight is going to be a revenge match for
Yeah.
Chukagian, right? A revenge. Come on, we love revenge.
For sure. It seems they padded it out quite nicely. After a few days of not knowing what the hell's going on, there is now some clarity.
Yeah. To piggyback off the Chukagian and Shevchenko fight, a couple other fights that
Yeah.
they put on here that are looking very interesting is fight of the night types would be like the Billy Quarantillo versus Spike Carlisle. Billy, he's a guy that has been through the Ultimate Fighter Contender Series and finally got to the UFC, and he's not taking his time, man. His last fight, he came in and got an exciting finish. Spike Carlisle also, him in his UFC debut versus Alan Cruz. I feel that was in UFC Tampa. He got a finish with some clean elbows, and I feel like he also got a performance of the performance bonus. And Billy, same thing. This is going to be one of those fights that we're going to see contend for fight of the night coming up on May 30th. And another fight is it's also a fight of the night contender, Casey Kenny versus Luis Smoka. Casey Kenny is coming off a loss, and I believe Louis Smolka is also coming off a loss, but Casey Kenny is in a better position than Louis Smolka. Louis Smolka's on a losing streak, and Casey Kenny's someone that's ranked, building themselves up. So it's a good fight stylistically, but it doesn't really make sense in the overall scheme of the division. But a fight that I'm interested to see, and to see what Smolka got left in the
Well,
tank.
nothing really makes sense at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Just throwing what they can together, and understandably so. It's difficult circumstances, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So if you look at even Tim Elliott, he's taking on a UFC debutante. You know what I mean? Like, and Tim Elliott's ranked in the flyweight division also. Brock Weaver versus Roosevelt Roberts. That's a banger. These two guys are gonna go out there and trade, and I feel like this is a perfect fight for either man to bring out the best in them. Weaver, if you watched his debut in the UFC, it didn't come off so well. You know what I mean? He had this, the fight was stopped due to illegal strikes. Roosevelt Roberts, he's coming off a loss. He's had a long layoff. I'm interested to see how he comes back, because that was
He
his
looked good on
first
Contender
defeat
Series,
as a
huh?
professional. Yeah, both these guys Contender Series guys.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anything else catch your attention on this card?
Not really, but yesterday or a few days ago, I was saying that this card was, very thin, but now with all these fights added, it's a decent fight night, a
Yeah.
decent fight night card, and a lot of interesting matchups. Uh, it's one of those cards like, let's say the Glover versus Smith card, that card, or was it the Alistair card? I believe it was the Alistair Harris card. It was, everybody thought it was going to be underwhelming, but there was a lot of great fights throughout that night, and I feel like this May 30th card is going to be the same. Not the biggest names, but some good matchmaking going on here.
Why don't we move on to UFC 250? They've also padded out that card a little bit. Let's run through it on Tapology here. Thank you, everyone at Tapology. All right. We knew a few of these fights before. It's still asking a little bit, isn't it, for a pay-per-view to fork over those hard-earned $60, $65, whatever it is. But at least we have a little bit more of an idea what's going on. Aljamain Sterling, Corey Sandhagen. That'll be a good one.
Yeah, this one is, if it's not a number one contender fight, it should be for the title. If Henry Cejudo is really retired from mixed martial arts competition, that means he relinquishes the UFC title. That means they have no champion in that division. This could be for the title if they really wanted to make it for the title, or at least for the interim title. I was saying that they need to put another title fight on this card. I don't see why they don't just make this one for a title. If Henry Cejudo is really retired, let him, if he wants more money, he wants more money. But if they're not going to give it to him, then take the title and put it up for grabs here. It kind of screws over Peter Yan.
Well,
but
yeah, I was going to ask.
This is all logistics here.
Surely Peter Yan gets a say in that if there is an interim title fight.
He does get a say in it, but he's stuck in Thailand. He can't leave. Well, who are you supposed to fight if you can't leave your country? You know what I mean? Like, Sterling and Sandhagen both live in the U.S. The fight is most likely going to be in the U.S., most likely in Las Vegas. They're, it's just, they're doing, the UFC is doing with what they have, and they don't have Peter Yan. And Fight Island doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Or if it does, who knows? Most likely it's going to take longer than scheduled. So they have to put this fight together. And what's interesting about this fight too is that Sterling said he wasn't going to fight during the pandemic, but looks like he's going to fight, right? It's weird.
Well, maybe they've sweetened the pot a little bit with perhaps, a title on the line.
Yeah, they should. Maybe they didn't announce it yet, but I feel like they should put something here to make it worthwhile. But there's some other interesting bantamweight fights that they've announced in addition to Sterling Sandhagen. You got Sean O'Malley coming back against Eddie Wyland. I feel like this fight is like perfectly matched up to showcase Sean O'Malley, because Eddie Wyland, he's a guy that fought for the title before. He's a gritty veteran, been around for a long time, but his style of fighting, it meshes well with O'Malley's style, his striking, and this could be turn out to be a major showcase for O'Malley. You know what I mean? A guy with a name. That's what O'Malley needs, right? And it's good to build him up with this matchup against Eddie Wyland. I'm not saying Eddie Wyland doesn't have a chance, but I feel like skill set versus skill set, O'Malley has a lot of advantages coming in, and youth is one of the major advantages I see. And then the other one that they have, we talked about yesterday, was a Sun Sal versus Garbrandt. This is another big bantamweight matchup. Garbrandt has, man, he's on a 3-fight losing streak, I believe, and if he loses to a Sun Sal, then he's most likely going to be a featherweight in his next fight, or not a featherweight, a flyweight in his next fight. If a Sun Sal loses, I don't know where that puts a Sun Sal. This is the repercussions of this, the outcome of this matchup is going to determine a lot of things for both fighters. You know, it's not like one fighter will lose and then they'll be very similar in their standings in the division. This if Garbrandt loses, he could be kicked out the rankings. You know what I mean? Automatically, the bantamweight rankings. You can't lose that many times and still stick around. And a Sun Sal, if he loses to Garbrandt, it's like, where do you go from here? You know what I mean? Like, you got to build yourself up again, because Garbrandt is not like, you know, on this massive win streak and looking at the title shot or anything like that. So it's something that I'm looking at real closely to see what happens to both fighters after this fight is over. And then the other fight that they announced is Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin. Rocco Martin was supposed to fight on the he was scheduled to fight a German fighter, I forgot his name. But yeah, he was Martin. When I interviewed Martin, he was telling me like that was kind of the matchmaking for that was very odd to him, because he felt like, you know, in his last fight he beat a decent opponent to where he should get somebody that's ranked or higher in the rankings, and he got Zawada, that's the German fighter's name, David Zawada, and he was like, man, I just gotta take a fight, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna take it, but that fight was canceled. They reschedule him. He gets Neil Magny, who's actually in the rankings, so everything works out for Martin. You know what I mean? Sometimes being patient and taking what the UFC gives you, it works out in the end. Don't you think, Nick?
For sure. And Neil Magny absolutely took apart the Leech, didn't he, last time out? So I'm interested to see how he does here. But does it really benefit him? Yeah, fighting someone who's below him, way below him.
It does not benefit him. He should be reaching for somebody that's, you know, a couple notches higher in the rankings. But it goes back to that, you know, what we were saying earlier is there's not many options for these fighters, and if they want to fight, if they want to make money, then they got to take who they can take. And it just shows you, you know, like we saw last week, Angela Hill versus Claudia Gadelha. Claudia was what, top 5 ranked?
Yeah.
Angela wasn't even in the rankings.
I feel like we're in some bizarro world where results are not really going to matter for the next few months. You know, if you take a loss in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be too devastating, right?
Yeah, not to the UFC. They didn't. I believe that they didn't even highlight or not highlight update the rankings last week after 3 events. So
well,
that kind of shows you something.
Fighting in divisions they don't normally fight in, right?
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true too. So we'll see. You know what can come out of this, but the Sterling Sanhagen fight, that is a really good fight. It's gonna. And I want to see something up for grabs with that. If Henry Cejudo is really retired, this will show us.
Yeah, I think, you know, hardcore fans will find enough here to be entertained by, but still, if you're asking me to pay all that money, it's a little bit thin. Although, you know, I love my man Chase Hooper. He's back. Alex Caceres, right? You like that one?
Is that for the June 6th card?
This is 250, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's also a great fight. I like how they're building Chase Hooper up. You know what I mean? Like he is a good personality. He seems like he's like who the UFC they signed Sage Northcutt because of who Sage Northcutt was, but it never panned out, right? And I feel like Chase Hooper is that symbol that they need, the all-American kid. And Chase Hooper is the all-American MMA kid. Like he grew up MMA, and he has the personality, and taking on Alex Caceres in his next fight is a good fight. It's a good challenge because Caceres has, man, he has more than 10, he has 10, 15 UFC fights. He's been around forever. Went through the Ultimate Fighter. And if Chase Hooper can get past him impressively, that's a big win for him, and it builds him up slowly to to face bigger names in the future. And I feel like by the end of the year, we're going to be talking about Chase Hooper a lot.
All right, when it comes to the news today, I guess leading the agenda is Jon Jones. He's taken this Francis Ngannou fight another step forward, apparently gone to the UFC and explored the possibility, what they'd be willing to offer him for it. He did not like the number they came back with. Have a little look at some of these tweets. He's gone on a bit of a Twitter rant.
Yeah, the tweet that stands out most to me is the one from yesterday, which it says, "The more I think about it, if I'm going to be taking big risks, I might as well go for all the cheese. I want that crown too. Send a deal." So when you think about that, you look at what he says. He's like, he's taking the risk. We know that, right? It's very clear. Because he's moving up in weight, taking on the most vicious power puncher to probably ever step into the octagon. And then it mentions that he wants all the cheese. So we know that he's chasing that money, and I'm glad that he's chasing that money, because you should get what you deserve. And Jon Jones probably deserves a lot, right? Or not probably, he does deserve a lot. He's been around forever. He's done everything.
I think he's
And
the
then it
biggest
says, "I want that
draw
crown."
they have behind Conor McGregor and Khabib, right?
Oh, definitely one of the biggest draws right now on the roster. He's up there with Israel and Habib, and I don't know about McGregor. McGregor's at another level, but yeah, he's
Well, I
up
think
there.
you'll have McGregor there. Khabib is just behind McGregor, I think.
Yeah,
And then Jones is by far the third biggest draw I think they have in terms of pay-per-view buys. You'll always get 700,000, 800, that kind of range out of him, won't you? Maybe 1 million if it's a big fight.
definitely. Yeah, he's a big star, so he deserves the big money, and I'm glad that he knows his worth. And then he also says, "I want that crown too." So could they be fighting if Stipe's out and he's not going to fight anytime soon? Are they negotiating to put an interim title on the line versus Ngannou? Are they, of course it's going to be a pay-per-view, so they're going to want a lot of money. I'm glad they're negotiating, and of course they're not going to agree to terms the first time around, right? So all these tweets that come after that is talking about how the deal is not getting done.
Yeah, let's
And
have a little look at it.
yeah.
He seemed to live tweet his negotiations with the UFC on the phone, which is cool. I've never really seen that before, but let's see.
Yeah.
Let's just trace it. So he says, currently in negotiation at UFC as we speak. And then, unbelievable. Seems like he was probably upset at something they said. Then he moves on. Before even discussing numbers, the UFC was unwilling to pay more for the Francis super fight or for me to move to heavyweight. Said I could possibly earn more in pay-per-view buys. And then there are a few more. He seems to hint at taking a long break. It's been fun, you guys. Maybe I'll see you all in a year or two. I think a lot of guys do this kind of thing. But anyway, then he says, maybe when they're ready to do better business, I'll come back. Until then, health, fitness, and family. I should have worded that differently. I actually think these guys do great business. Right now, things just aren't where I want them to be. And then finally, red panty night for the light heavyweight division.
Well, flipping and flopping.
Retirement or taking a break?
He's flipping and flopping, you know,
Yeah.
like back and forth. And that's what negotiations are. It's back and forth. You hear something that you like, and then you hear something that you don't like. And then you say something that you feel like in your mind is the perfect number, and the opposition probably completely disagrees, right? So the negotiations are going. I feel that these negotiations are going to be going for a while, because there's nothing set in stone for Francis. Francis, what options does he have? He has the Jones fight, or he has the title fight. Is he gonna fight somebody else, a contender in the heavyweight division next? No, that would just be a waste of time, right? That'd just be unless he just wants to make money and take a risk, because in the heavyweight division, nothing is guaranteed. So
Let's
if
see
he
what
steps in
Francis
there,
said. He also
yeah.
chimed in after John. John had his little Twitter rant. Francis Ngannou, in my opinion, the UFC aren't willing to make this John fight happen, or at least for what it's worth. Followed that one up with, as you were saying, no title fight, no super fight. Who knows when's going to be my next fight? Hope it's not in another 11 months or so. Hashtag this sucks.
Well, it shows you that
Yeah.
the money is not up to par. Like, they're not offering enough for these two guys to fight.
It's interesting because
But
this pandemic, I thought, wow, this is the perfect time for fighters. They finally have leverage, right, over the UFC. I thought we might start to see things like this, but especially with the superstars, why they don't need to come out and fight. They don't need the money. There are a lot of guys and girls on the roster who do need the money.
Mhm.
But with your champions, your Cejudos and Jones, you're seeing these things, right? They don't need to risk it all for a small paycheck. Pay me the big money, or I'll walk away.
They,
Is that you're going to see
they,
more of this? You think?
yeah. If you're a fighter, you need to negotiate. You need to push back. Especially as a champion. Right now, Ngannou, he's the number one contender in the heavyweight division, right? Jon Jones is a superstar. He's a champion, the longest reigning champion, one of the longest reigning champions, if you take away all the the criminal activities and stuff like that, right? But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just he needs to do this. You know what I mean? Because really, he's beaten everybody in the light heavyweight division, so he always has that to fall back on. You know what I mean? He could always fight a light heavyweight, defend the title, but he needs to negotiate and push back and get as much as he can out of this, because the UFC is in a terrible position right now uh, with the limited amount of shows that they can put on, and the position they're in during the pandemic. So they should. The Jones, I hope he pushes hard, and I hope the other champions are pushing hard to get more money right now, because they should be trying to do it.
Not much else in the news. I guess we could talk a little bit about Anthony Smith. He's making some noise after the controversy surrounding the coach not stepping in against Glover Teixeira, or the referee not stepping in as well. He's done an interview with MMA Fighting's Damon Martin. Let's have a little look at this. Basically, yeah, just John, what's your take? Is Anthony in the right or the wrong to say, I never want the referee to step in or the coach to step in? I want to go out on my sword, that kind of talk.
Well, he's a fighter. That's expected out of the fighter. The fighter doesn't want to quit ever. And Anthony Smith never quit. You know what I mean? He never gave a hint of wanting to quit. People say, oh, he said in the corner that his teeth were knocked out. That doesn't mean that he wanted to quit. He's just telling the coach his teeth are knocked out, right? It doesn't say anything. People are trying to read in between the lines too much. Should they have stopped the fight earlier? Of course, somebody should have stopped the fight earlier, but I wouldn't blame the corner or the referee. This is the most chaotic sport we're watching. Two guys go in there to basically kill each other, and people are arguing about this. It's like, come on, these guys, the mentality of a fighter is something that most of us will never be able to comprehend completely, right?
I
Especially
think
entering a cage at
for
the
me,
highest level.
the issue for me is I love Anthony Smith. I think he deserves that nickname Lionheart, but yeah, the issue goes back to when you have to protect these guys from themselves. And here he's saying, I'm not a victim. I put myself in this position on purpose. I want to be in these situations, that kind of thing. And he says in this article, he also said it to ESPN, he's been telling his coaches for years they're not allowed to stop his fights and throw in the towel, otherwise they're fired. To me, this is the issue. You see it in boxing where I think coaches can throw in the towel and boxers will accept it, that their life has been saved. But in MMA, it's almost this weird unwillingness to accept that your coach knows better than you to protect your health, not just to protect your career for a few more years, but to protect your life. And Anthony Smith protected his family from that home intruder. He should also be thinking about protecting his family by protecting his long-term health. That's what my concern is.
Well, Anthony Smith threatening his coaching staff to fire them if they ever threw in the towel, it kind of shows you a unhealthy relationship between him and his coaching staff, doesn't it?
Yeah, but now I think everyone was giving his coaching staff heat after that fight, saying, why didn't you throw in the towel? But now I get it. If they throw in the towel, they lose their jobs, essentially, is what Anthony's saying.
But should you, as a coach, have that hanging over your head?
I don't think you should. It's unfair on the coach. I wouldn't blame the coach for walking away from a fighter if he was told, I'm going to fire you if you throw in the towel. It goes back to Tony Ferguson and Eddie Bravo said, I considered throwing in the towel in the 4th, 5th round. He said I never would have done it because, Tony's like a brother to me, but he said it crossed his mind that if he'd been in a position of power, he might have thought about doing it. But this is an issue, isn't it? Where does friendship end and where does coach relationship start?
Yeah, it's a blurry line right there. And when you have the thing about Eddie Bravo is the jiu-jitsu coach. He's the ground coach, right? So he's not the head coach. The head coach is the one that should be taking the lead. You're the boss, right? And if you're gonna get fired, then you get fired. You should not have that holding you back from protecting your fighter at all, at any time. And yeah, it's weird how this has played out, right? How the referee, Jason Herzog, comes out and apologizes and takes the blame. And from the coaches saying that, they don't regret not throwing in the towel, to Anthony Smith coming out and saying he's going to fire his coaches if they do throw in the towel. Man, this is the sport of MMA right here. This is if someone asked me what is MMA, I would point to this situation right here. This is how chaotic it is. And we're not even talking about the actual fight, right? So it's just the decision making. The head coach, they need to make the decision, right? Even if they're threatened by the athlete, the fighter, at the end of the day, you're watching the fight from the corner and you're dissecting how well your fighter is doing. And if your fighter is at a point where they're not going to be able to come back and even win this fight and they're taking too much damage, then you got to throw in the towel. You know what I mean? You got to do it. But the coach knows best, but the fighter should never be deciding that factor.
What did you make of Eddie's comments, Eddie Bravo? I wrote the story for SCMP this week. He was on Joe Rogan Experience, obviously. Very candid. I don't know if you saw the interview, but he just revealed a lot, I thought, about how he thought he never should have gone in there and given Tony advice before the 5th round. He said, he didn't really know what he was doing. He felt lost. He froze. He didn't know what to say because, as he admits, I'm not a head MMA coach. He says, I'm the guy who just shouts shit from the sidelines, essentially, the wide receiver coach. It was a really revealing interview, I thought, and it shone a little bit more light on that fight about how maybe Tony wasn't getting the right advice, especially in those later rounds.
Well, it goes back to the head coach. Eddie Bravo is not the head coach. He's not even the striking coach. That fight was all stand-up. There was barely any exchanges on the ground. And what Eddie Bravo was saying was that he is a skills coach, basically, right? And he doesn't want to be the head coach. That's not who he is. And he knows his position in the corner. And for them the head coach, to throw Eddie Bravo in there, in the 4th round, that reflects on the head coach. The head coach should be in the corner, throwing, giving Tony the proper advice for the last round, not Eddie Bravo. Eddie Bravo, he said everything from the heart, I feel, and he revealed that he was being honest, and that's kind of rare in media a lot of the times, is guys being honest about what their position is, because a lot of guys want to be bigger than who they are, right, in the media or on social media. But Eddie Bravo was telling you clearly, like, hey, man, this is me. This is my job. This is my position. This is what I get paid for. And I was put in a position where I was very uncomfortable, and I could, and pretty much laid an egg, right? He laid a goose egg. He admits to it. And I'm fine with that. I have some sympathy for Eddie Bravo, because he explained it from his point of view of being the ground coach and the jiu-jitsu coach and the moral support, and that's what he's there for. He's not there for the overall scheme of the MMA, the game plan and even striking at all. It should have been the striking coach in there. But
Yeah, he said
it looked like the whole corner panicked.
Yeah,
right? They didn't expect this to happen.
Agreed. And another interesting thing he revealed is he lost his glasses. Someone broke into his car the week before the fight, so he didn't even know how bad Tony was cut, right? And when he gets in there, he sees Tony's face is a mess.
Yeah,
just a comedy of errors, right? I think.
Yeah, it was just chaos.
Championship fight.
And the corner, in the championship fight, and the corner should never be that chaotic, right? The corner should be the eye of the storm, right? They should be the calm, where when the fighter comes back from the chaos, they can relax and refocus. But it wasn't that. Their corner was in chaos. It's like their coaching staff was in disarray, and it reflect on Eddie Bravo opened up and just revealed all of that to us when he didn't have to. I'm pretty sure there's some people that are going to be angry about that, especially from Tony's team.
Well, it was cool to see such candid things. You don't normally get it, but yeah, Eddie Bravo is an honest guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
I guess we switch up a little bit. I just wanted to talk about some non-UFC stuff. Angela Lee. I don't know if you've seen this, man. So One Championship did some kind of poll or whatever to ask fans what super fight, would you like to see? And it seems the one that came in on top was Angela Lee against Stamp Fairtex, who's obviously the atomweight Muay Thai champion. She just lost the atomweight kickboxing belt to Janet Todd earlier this year in February. But so Stamp's only had 4 fights, I think, in MMA, but it seems like Angela was welcoming the idea of those two going to war. This got a little bit of reaction from her fans and other just general One Championship fans who were mad that maybe they thought she was trying to duck Denice Zamboanga, who is next in line, it seems, for a title shot. Just have a little read of what Angela said quickly. Yes, so the comment section, my last post got a little bit spicy. Here's the thing, guys. Whether my next fight is Stamp or Denice, it really doesn't matter to me. One just hosted a contest to see which matchup the fans wanted to see the most. The fans voted that they wanted to see me versus Stamp even more than Giorgio Petrosian and Nikki Holskin. So shoot, if that's the fight to make, then let's make it happen. Stamp is not just a kickboxer, Muay Thai fighter. She has actually had 3 successful MMA fights in one, where Denice has only had 2. However, I do acknowledge Denice's last fight against Mei Yamaguchi. To sum things up, I don't make the final call. That's up to One Championship. I don't need to dodge anyone or call anyone out because I'm already the champ. Respect goes both ways. I respect you if you respect me. But don't ever say the champ is dodging a fight because that's just plain stupid. Right. A lot to unpack there. First of all, do you feel in your heart that they're switching gear and maybe actually going to go for Angela v. Stamp, or is it just a contest?
It's just a contest. It's just to stir the pot a little bit, get people talking about Angela Lee and Stan Fairtex. Yeah, those two names right there are two of the biggest names on the roster, especially for the women. And putting them together and putting these fantasy matchups together, it just gets people talking and interacting. And I think at the end of the day, that's what One Championship wants. I don't think One Championship will put Stamp Fairtex against Angela Lee anytime soon. Stamp Fairtex needs to develop into a more complete fighter, and it's going to take a year or two to do that. Just because she's had a few fights in the cage, right, under MMA rules, doesn't mean that she's ready to fight someone like Angela Lee, right? We watched Angela Lee grow up in front of us, from just this like young prospect into a champion. And she's gone through the ups and downs, right? Stan Fairtex hasn't done that yet. So if you put Stan Fairtex in there now against Angela Lee, you're basically putting a lamb to slaughter, right? That's what it is. It's like a sacrifice to the gods. Odin would be happy, right? It's just that's what it would be. There's no point. Like, yes, the biggest win Stan Fairtex has in MMA is against B Nguyen, but let's be honest, B Nguyen, look at her record in One Championship. I think she's like a 500 fighter, right? So does that justify a title shot? Absolutely not. Denice just beat the girl that many consider beat Angela Lee, right? It was just the judges, chose Angela Lee in that fight. And both of those fights were fight of the year contenders and great fights. And it showed that Denice can go in there and give Angela Lee some kind of competition, right? And it's going to be all around competition. It's not like Denice is one dimensional. Denice can fight on the ground, she can wrestle, and she can stand there and bang, right, with the best of them. So for One Championship to leapfrog Denice and put Stamp in there doesn't make any sense. And also on top of that, they need to have Denice push that Filipino, flag in One Championship. They need that. They need a female champion from the Philippines. Philippines is probably their biggest market. Why would they throw that away right now? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me, and put Stamp in there. Yeah, this fight, it's gonna happen versus Denice. Stamp, it's just a contest. Angela Lee, she expressed herself very well in that post. Like she expressed herself like a champion, right? And she knows that she doesn't have to duck anybody. They're gonna make fights, and she's gonna go fight them, and she's gonna get paid a lot of money. So I don't see her saying that she's not gonna fight this person or that person, because she's fought what, Nicolini. That was her former teammate. She's fought the strawweight champ twice already. Like, it's crazy to say that she would duck Stan Fairtex. It's or not Stan Fairtex. Denice Zamboanga. She's faced the best of the best in the women's divisions.
Considering Denice and Stamp train together, is there perhaps an element of Angela subtly stirring a rivalry up between them for who gets to fight her, or am I reading too much into that?
No, it's all, there's mind games, right? There's always mind games. And if Angela is doing that to play some mind games with Denice and Stamp, why not do it? I love it. You know what I mean? Everybody's always talking about respect and honor and all. Yeah, you have all that, but doesn't mean that you can't play mind games with your opponents, right?
Yeah, I feel sometimes the One Championship fighters, they want to trash talk a little bit. They want to throw out some challenges, but they're not allowed to. They have to push the integrity, honor, respect, all that stuff that One Championship likes to build the brand on. sometimes I feel Angela, yeah, she's one of the fighters especially who just wants to spice things up a little bit. That's why I was wondering maybe she's got some subtle message there, but don't want to put words in Angela's mouth, obviously.
But
I
Angela's fiery though. It's
yeah,
not like she hasn't in the past, right? She's come out and revealed a lot, right, of herself. She has two sides. She has the respect on her side, and then she has the side. If you come at her, she's gonna come at you.
yeah, definitely in the build up to the Michelle Nicolini fight last year. Definitely had a few words for Nicolini because Nicolini said, "Oh, Angela beat me up in training, and then I'm not her friend anymore." And then Angela was like, "Well, if she thought I beat her up in training, she's gonna find out me really beating her up." I like those kind of things. You don't see it often in one. I'd like to see a little bit more. You can still do it within the boundaries of respect and everything like that. You don't have to call them a MFer or all these swear words.
Well,
Anyway,
yeah, you attack the skill set. You attack their past performances. That's not trash talk. That's just that's your opinion of what you think of that person. You know what I mean? You're not attacking their character unless you have to attack their character, right? But yeah, we're not saying go to Colby Covington levels of promotion. We're just saying like let's spice it up a little bit. Let's get some little bit of insulting, you know what I mean? A little bit, you know what I mean? Not too much.
yeah, it always helps build up a fight, doesn't it? And then that means more money for everyone. Anyway, I don't think I've got anything else to discuss today. It's a fairly slow news day in the MMA world. Did anything else cross your mind, John?
No, that's about it. We've covered everything today.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'll let you go then. I'm sure you're very busy. You got a few other interviews lined up. I better go do some actual work as well. Get writing. Yeah, man. As always, great to chat to you. I'm sure I'll see you again. Yeah, JHK MMA. Go check him out on Twitter and YouTube. And I'm Nico SCMP. You can find me on Twitter. Also follow SCMP MMA, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that shit. We're trying to build it up. Anyway, yeah, thanks once again, John. And thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Later.